Today I'm gonna explain to you why you quit every fucking business model that you try starting and try making money, why you quit, why you give up, and why you never essentially scale your business to the tens of thousands of dollars that you wanna make. So why I'm competitive and capable of talking about this topic is because I've done just that. I started a business model, I failed multiple times, I then started to sell digital products online, which I scaled to 30K a month, and now I'm kind of living my dream life. I mean, as I always say, I have higher inspirations, but this is kind of the life that I'm living and I'm pretty good with it. So, the first step you gotta think about in this process of you guys starting a business model, trying to do it, making some money, and then quitting. I'm gonna show you the process that all of you guys basically go through. So, the first thing that you do is that you come to a realization of how broke you are. Now, I understand that this is something that practically all of business owners and entrepreneurs go through. You have the situation in life, everything is going good, and then you lose your money, you go broke essentially. And then you realize how broke you are, that you cannot pay for good food, you cannot go to the gym, etc. You get to a realization. So this is you as the first step of this cycle. The next step is that you buy a course and start a business. Now, there's nothing essentially wrong with this, to buy a course and start a business, but this is just the step that you go through. So you go online, you see all of these gurus talk about trading, talk about e-com, organic dropshipping, paid ads, etc. And then you decide to buy a course, which is okay, and then you start a business. Now, I'm talking about this process in a way that is perfect, because most of the people would go to the first step, realize how broke they are, and then when they come to a second step, they buy the course, but never fucking start a business. So I'm talking about a perfect scenario for people in general. So the third step is that you start a business and you start making money. You start making some money, whether that be a few $100s a month, maybe a few thousand, etc. But you start making some money. Then the fourth step is that you make less money and you cannot scale. Now, a lot of people go through this. They have their periods of, let's say you're a beginner and you make like 500 to a K, 1K bands, 1K dollars per month, and then you cannot scale. You get stuck in that income ceiling of $1,000 or a few $1,000s, and then you cannot scale. You don't understand how to scale because your course taught you the basics. And when you cannot scale, essentially most people go through a period of not being able to scale, then they stagnate. And as I talked about in my previous videos on Instagram and on my YouTube channel, when you stagnate, there's going to be a period of you essentially being at the same level, and then after some time it starts to fall off. So you have this period of making money, stagnation because you can't scale, then you go down, and then you gradually start to lose your income every month. And this is the crucial part of this cycle, because on fifth step, you start to hate yourself, you start to hate your business, you dread working, you hate thinking about your business, and essentially you quit. Now, this is what most people go through. I kind of went through the same thing, which is why I'm talking about this topic, because I made that mistake myself. So on the fifth step, you hate yourself and you quit, and then you go into the entrepreneur graveyard, which looks like this. You essentially quit your business and you have a few excuses that you tell a lot of people. So I know some guys that talk about like, oh, 99% of businesses fail, and if you make like 30K a month, you're one in a million people that you can do that, which is bullshit. But a lot of people go through that. They make some money, they stagnate, lose their income, quit their business model, and then start spreading these dumb beliefs and excuses around, such as 99% of businesses fail, etc. And they start saying, oh, I would have been a millionaire, I would have scaled this business except X excuse. So this is what most people go through. And then the cycle repeats itself. Now, this may not happen to you essentially, like maybe you quit the business model and get a 9-to-5, which is completely fine, I don't give a fuck. But some people go through this cycle over and over again until they realize the mistake that they're making. And this is why I'm here. I'm gonna teach you this mistake that took me 4 fucking years to learn. And if I knew about this concept a year ago, I would have scaled my business pretty fucking fast, but I didn't do it as fast as I actually could have. So the mistakes you made are in the third and fourth step. The third step is that you start making some money. Now, this essentially is not a mistake, this is good. But as you see on this picture, this guy is pretty happy about making money, which is cool. I mean, I felt really happy making money and I still feel happy. But he looks too happy. Now I'm gonna show you why. The fourth step is that you can see a contrast. He was feeling happy, excited, and then he feels depressed and destroyed. So this is the third and fourth step, which is the most important thing. Now the problem here is that he got emotionally attached. So I'm going to show you the IOO method, which is inputs over outputs method. I'm going to explain what that means. So inputs is essentially you working on your business, you pushing new products, learning about your business model, implementing some new stuff, everything that can be packed into a bracket called work is the inputs. And the outputs is you making money and getting the sales from it. I don't know, you're getting the dopamine of that client that respond to your email. That's all outputs. And outputs are there to spike your dopamine and make you feel a certain emotion. Money makes people feel emotions of confidence, of security, etc., power. So the problem that you made, or the mistake that you made, is that you got emotionally attached to the money. And this is completely normal because this happens to everybody that doesn't know about this concept. Because when you start making money, if that's the first, I don't know, $1,000 that you made in your life, outside of a 9-to-5 or anything similar, you're gonna get emotionally attached because that's something that you never experienced before. And I felt that same thing when I started my business and when I started making good money with it. I got emotionally attached to it. I got too excited for the money, which is the mistake. So essentially what you become is that you become a simp for money. And this is a terrible situation because that's going to lead you through this cycle of starting a business, quitting, starting, quitting, and then essentially you don't become a good entrepreneur. So you become a simp for money, you do everything for money, which is okay if emotions weren't attached to the money. And because you're attached to the money emotionally, that means that if you have less money, you're going to be feeling depressed. And that's essentially starting a downward spiral into you quitting your business model and destroying your fucking business. So a key takeaway is that you cannot be a simp for money if you want to be in this game long term. And when you have these periods, you go through these roller coaster of emotions, you have the highs and lows, and that's normal in business. I feel the highs and lows constantly. That's essentially the business. But the problem is that you are too emotionally attached. I'm going to show you how you can fix that. So another thing that you need to understand is that bad days are coming. Like, there is no shortage of bad days. They're always going to come. And you got to be prepared for it, which is why I'm here. And why bad days are important for this specific concept is that you probably associate bad days with making less money than usual, which I did too. Like when I first made my $1,000 in a day, I felt so fucking excited. I cannot express to you enough how happy I was. I remember like going back home, I went on a coffee date, and I was going back home and I was like seeing the new sales rolling in, and I was texting my brother like, bro, I'm gonna hit the 1K a day today. Then by the time I got home, I hit that 1K a day. That was the best fucking feeling I ever felt. Like, it's so crazy that you can make someone's fucking double the monthly salary in my country in one fucking day. So I got home, I told my brother we were pretty fucking happy, and I went to pray to God, of course, because that was a pretty happy moment for me. And in that moment, I became a simp for money because it spiked my emotions so much that I got addicted to it. I essentially became a simp and a crackhead for money, which is fucking terrible because it made me make a lot of more mistakes that I could have avoided if I knew about this concept. So you go through these roller coaster of emotions, and then the bad days are coming, which is essentially you probably making less money than usual. And if you got attached to the money, the problem is that you have bad days, you're gonna feel depressed. That's gonna make the downward spiral that I talked about. So what you gotta become is you gotta become a farmer. Now, when you think about it, what does a farmer fucking do? He got a garden, he got the fucking tools, he got the seeds, he plants the seeds, waters the seeds, lets the sun do its work, and then he reaps the rewards of his sowing. So this is a farmer, of course, and you gotta become like him. And I'm gonna show you a really fucking smart quote. Don't judge the day by what you reap or rape, judge the day by what you sow. Now, this means that you should not judge your day by the outputs that you got from your business, but you should judge your day by the work that you put in for your business. And when you switch that mindset, it's going to be so easy to stay in the game long term and win over everybody else. I'm going to show you why. So, a farmer does this. He goes to his garden, he plants the seeds, he lets the water and the sun and all of the other fucking photosynthesis process do its work. And then he waits, of course, he puts time in it, he's patient, he's not in a fucking hurry, he's patient with his work. And then he gets the plants. He gets what he wanted. He did not judge the day by what he saw, what he reaped. He judged the day by what he saw. And that's why he never got discouraged. That's why he never started hating his garden. That's why he never quit gardening, planting and watering the plants, which is why he won in the end. A farmer fucking outbeat you in the business game. Understand that? So what you gotta do, you gotta set your goal by what you want to do. I talked about this numerous fucking times on my Instagram and on my YouTube channel. You gotta have clarity in your goals. And I even talked about this in my last video. You have to have clarity. Like, you gotta know exactly where the fuck do you want to go in life and what goal do you want to achieve. Because when you don't have clarity, you're essentially a fly without a head. You're just going around the world. You don't know where you're gonna end up. You're like a leaf that's on the ground and gets passed on by the wind. You're never gonna get to your destination ever if you don't have a clear fucking goal. But you gotta understand that you cannot have goals with deadlines. Especially if you're a beginner, because a lot of people tell you, you gotta have big goals, because you have big goals, you're gonna reach the stars, the moon, all of that bullshit. But that's not true. If you're a business beginner and you wanna make 30K a month or 100K a month, it's fucking unrealistic to tell yourself, I'm gonna make 100K a month by the end of this year. If the past few months you haven't been making even $1,000 a month, that's fucking delusional. And delusion is good in certain situations, but in this case, delusion is gonna get you to a place where you hate yourself. You're gonna quit this business model because you didn't achieve your goal. So set your goal, but don't set a deadline. So you gotta set your daily non-negotiables. So a daily non-negotiable would be like, if you're doing SMMA, I'm gonna send 100 cold emails and I'm gonna cold call 50 people. That's your non-negotiable task. So every day that you wake up, you gotta do the 50 cold calls and 100 cold emails. That's your non-negotiable. That's what you should fucking focus on. So you do that every day. Third thing is that you don't look at your sales often. Now, if you're doing e-commerce, this is what it applies to. Don't look at your fucking sales every 2 minutes. This is what I've done. I would wake up in the middle of the fucking night to check my sales. And during the day, I would check it like 20, 30 different times. Like, I would check the sales. And that's killing you mentally, because when you open your phone, check the sales, and you don't see the number that you want to see, you get fucking depressed and you go into this downward cycle. And by the way, if you got to this timestamp of video, please drop a comment with a eggplant emoji in the comments if you got to this time. So the fourth step, you gotta just work and let time help you. You gotta be the farmer that just works, plants the fucking plants, waters them, and lets the time pass by and do the work for you. Because one thing you gotta understand, especially in e-commerce, or in SMMA probably, is when you send those 100 cold outreach emails, or when you do fucking 10 creatives, post the ads, etc., you're not gonna see most of the time, you're not gonna see those results in that week, in that day. You're gonna see those results after 2 weeks, 3 weeks. And you're gonna have these periods, especially if you're a beginner, where you work for a week, you don't see results. By the end of the second week, you don't see results. But in the third week, you get all of the fucking results. You get thousands of dollars. You get all of these replies from your cold outreaches, etc. It all comes exponentially. You need to understand that everything in business is happening exponentially. You're gonna have periods where you go like this, putting in the work, and then it fucking shoots up. And that's why people call a lot of businessmen overnight success. Because if you're a friend with a business owner, you're gonna see him working. You're not gonna see him essentially like putting in the hours because you're not living with him, but he's putting in the hours, and you don't see the results of his work. You don't see the nice watch. You don't see the money that he's making, because he didn't made it yet. But in a month, when you see him again, he's in a fucking new car and has a cool watch on. That's the exponential success. And that's when people say, oh, he's an overnight success. Because people are dumb, so don't be dumb. Fifth step, you're gonna get rich. You're gonna get rich if you follow this fucking step. And if you don't get emotionally attached to the money. I'm not saying that you should not be grateful or happy about making money, but let that moment last for that long. And then you go back to work. You feel happy for a moment, you're grateful to God, and then you go back to work. So, follow me on Instagram. And another thing that I forgot to mention is that in business, you need to understand that people that last the longest in business make the most money. So let's say we have a business model of organic dropshipping, which I personally do not do, but my close friend of mine does it. So if you have the business of organic dropshipping or any kind of fucking business model, the people that stay in that game the longest, that stay improving the longest, that don't quit after 3 months, after 6 months, after a year, that don't fucking quit, they make the most money. And the people that start that make a few grand in a year, they get complacent, they lose their momentum, they quit their business model. That's the fucking front of the pack. But the people that make the most money are in that game for 2 to 3 years, and they're not stopping. They're constantly improving, tackling every problem, etc. So that's what you gotta do. You need to understand that in business, you cannot just be there for a month, for 3 months, make some money and then bounce, because you're never gonna be a successful business owner by that method. You gotta be focusing on your inputs. Fuck the outputs, fuck that shit. Don't even check it. Just focus on putting in the best work that you can. Stay in the business game the longest, stay improving, and know that success in business comes exponentially. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Follow me on Instagram, I post really good content over there. Send me some DMs, or not, don't send me DMs, write the comments in this video, and hopefully you're gonna see me by the end of this week again. So have a nice day.